White Boy Rick has spoken out for the first time since he was released from prison in July after serving 32 years for a nonviolent drug crime.
Stay tuned to find out what he had to say about his lengthy sentence and what it's like now that he is a free man. Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in.
Make sure you like our video and subscribe to the Ladies in Law.
Yeah, you know that little heart and thumbs up at the bottom of your screen? Click it before you do anything else.
Right, because legal news like this is too hot to miss, and we're bringing it to you every Thursday at 3 p.m. I'm Rippy.
And I'm Shake.
And we're the Ladies in Law,
where we're ripping and shaking up all the legal information you know, need to know, and want to know.
From the tabloids to the courthouse to your own home.
So today, we're discussing Richard Wirsch Jr., better known as White Boy Rick. Now, White Boy Rick, at age 14, became the youngest ever FBI informant and helped bring down some of the biggest Detroit drug dealers in the mid-'80s, which was at the height of the crack epidemic. And then he became a drug dealer himself, crossed very powerful city leaders, and ended up in prison for 3 decades.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So in 1987, White Boy Rick was age 17 when he got arrested for possessing cocaine, and he had over 8 kilos on him. He ended up being sentenced to life in prison without parole as a teenager at 17. Now, back in 1987, during that time, Michigan had in place what's called the 650 lifer law. And that law actually mandated life in prison without parole for anybody that was convicted of possessing over 650 grams of heroin or cocaine, which White Boy Rick had over 650 grams of cocaine. So back during this time in 1987, when White Boy Rick was convicted, that was at the height, of the crack epidemic. All the states were implementing laws to really crack down on drug crimes. So Michigan implemented a law that required that any sentencing for drug crimes be served consecutively. This means that the sentences have to be stacked rather than you getting credit for more than one crime at the same time. So this could effectively double people's sentences.
Oh, that's tough. Well, luckily for White Boy Rick, in the 2000s, the stance on drug crimes and juvenile penalties really changed. Okay, so in 2003, Michigan threw out the drug minimum sentencing laws, including that 650 lifer law. And then in 2012, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in a case called Miller v. Alabama that juveniles, like White Boy Rick, should no longer be sentenced to mandatory life sentences, life terms. I mean,
that was huge. That really was, there was a ton of juveniles who were sitting in prison for life without parole for just like White Boy Rick for these type of drug crimes. Some people had even killed people, but it's just like you're a juvenile. You're a juvenile.
And in the Supreme Court talked about that when you're a teenager, your brain isn't fully developed, and being a teenager and not having a fully developed brain means that you usually can be rehabilitated much better. So those were reasons that ruling came about. And then in 2016, the Supreme Court again ruled, but this time in Montgomery v. Louisiana, that the Miller opinion should be applied retroactively. Okay, so this means going backward, where usually these new type of laws only apply moving forward. So this is even bigger.
Now, this Montgomery decision that Amina referenced was actually what allowed White Boy Rick to be eligible for parole. And he received parole from Michigan back in 2017 after serving 32 years. He ended up being the longest serving juvenile offender in the entire state of Michigan. Wow.
Yeah.
But when he was released, he wasn't free. He was actually transferred to a prison in Florida.
Oh, goodness.
He had to do time for a crime that he pled guilty to while he was incarcerated. And White Boy Rick actually spoke with the Daily Mail in his recent interview, and he explained that prison transport from Michigan to Florida was absolute hell for 1 week. He said that was the worst thing that he had to undergo, the most traumatic part in his whole 30-some years of prison. So I can't even imagine what was going on.
I can't even think about it. Well, here's the real kicker, okay? So this crime, you're probably wondering what it was that shot him down to Florida, was involving a car theft ring. Mm-hmm. And really what happened is, while in prison, White Boy Rick introduced his sister to a car salesman. Well, the problem was that whole situation turned into a stolen car ring. And White Boy Rick, thinking he was never leaving prison because of his earlier sentence, pled guilty to protect his sister and mother from criminal charges. Mm-hmm. White Boy Rick told the Daily Mail that police essentially forced him into a plea because they threatened him with arresting his mom and sister if he rejected that plea. Mm-hmm. So he pled guilty and served more time for a crime he didn't commit.
So it just really seems that the whole criminal justice system has just utterly failed White Boy Rick. When you think about it, him serving 32 years in Michigan for a non-violent drug crime seems absolutely ridiculous. The fact that he was an FBI informant at 14, they taught him, that taught him how to navigate the drug game. I mean, they essentially kind of set him up for failure. And the fact that he was forced into a plea, I mean, this just seems unjust all the way around. Now, White Boy Rick was not convicted on the typical drug kingpin statute like conspiracy or running a criminal enterprise. It was simply just a routine traffic stop, and he happened to have this cocaine on him. But the 650 life for law at the time mandated that cost him his life. I mean, that seems just very, very unjust. It almost seems ridiculous, honestly, when we look back on it now that the laws are different. But White Boy Rick, he's undoubtedly said, hey, I did something wrong. I admit that, I should have done time. But 32 years just doesn't seem fair. Doesn't seem proportional to the level of crime that he committed. I mean, there was, he didn't run up and rob somebody, kill somebody, none of that. I mean, people that have killed people or raped people have got out with less time.
Yep. And so now we have White Boy Rick, a 51-year-old man who's free and back in Michigan. And his situation has gotten a huge amount of media attention. There's been a movie recently released about it. I saw it. It was incredible. And he had a lot of apprehension, not knowing where his life was going to be. But he actually says that he has more peace in his life now more than ever. And and that he's made to feel actually really welcome and accepted, which I'm sure was something he was really nervous about and anxious. But a lot of people seem to see and feel like, wow, this kid at 14 was an FBI informant, learned how the scheme works. Then at 17, life in prison without parole. I mean, people even that see him when he goes to get food and recognize him will pay for that. And just to kind of wrap up this video on a nice note, White Boy Rick is engaged to his long-term girlfriend. He's enjoying life. He never had, due to his conviction, never thought he would have. Right. And but he's still wondering. He's still wondering why he had to spend so much time in prison. So thanks for watching, and make sure you like and subscribe so you get all of the hottest legal news from the Ladies in Law every week.
That's another episode of Ladies in Law, not your average lawyers. Rip it up, shake it up, rip it up, shake it up, rip it up, shake it up.